All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Walks on Wall Street. We are here in downtown Miami tonight. It's going to be a quick stream. It's not going to be too long. A few things I want to talk about. Tonight. We did get existing home sales data. So I think tonight is going to be mainly focused on the real estate market. Many people are calling for a real estate recession. Breaking news crossed pretty much all the major financial channels, CNBC, Bloomberg. One of the headlines is home sales fell nearly 6% in July as housing market slides into recession. Is this the true Armageddon that everybody's talking about? Should we be freaking out about this? We're going to analyze the report. We're going to talk about what exactly happened and how we could prepare ourselves for the future. So one thing I did want to note before we really get started here is that something interesting is happening. So even though home sales are declining, we're actually seeing the average price or the median price of a home that was sold in July actually higher year over year. So you would think as sales are pretty much falling off a cliff, I think you could say. I think this is about the fifth month of existing home sales declines. You would think that prices would actually be going lower. We're not. We're seeing prices go higher, which sort of bring me back to a potential 1970s housing market scenario where we could have an environment of slowing sales, but prices continue to go higher. So we'll talk about that today. Once again, it will be about an hour and a half stream. Let me just turn on the subscribers only mode here, and I think we should be good to go. All right, I think it's on. So I'll say hello to everybody in the chat. I see Gregory's here, Roy S, RJ, good to see you. Dutchman says, hey Tom, and hello, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you, Dutchman. Sally is here, NG is here, Brian, welcome. Robert says, hey Tom and friends. Sally, Dante Rose, Charlie Richardson. Good to see you guys. Otto says, hey Tom in chat. Denise, Sinjib, the ABX girl, Samantha J. Welcome to everybody. So I'm going to put away my computer and we are going to be walking towards downtown Miami. Really humid night. Really humid night. Okay. So if you look all the way in the distance, you'll be able to see the very famous Paramount building here in Miami. Now this intersection that we're about to come up against and cross is a really horrible intersection. So bear with us as we cross that. But I could have sworn it felt like it was 100 degrees today. Extremely high humidity. But now that it is dark, things have kind of tapered off. Gustavo is here, says hello from Venezuela. Good to see you, Gustavo. Sweet Country Living is here, welcome. Sunshine after rain. Austin City Limits, hello. Al Baker, good to see you. So we have existing home sales data out. And, you know, I was tuning into CNBC today. I was flipping back and forth between Bloomberg. And everybody was making a really big deal about this data, claiming that we are in a housing recession. So I wanted to talk about a couple things specifically. I've been noticing a lot of the local news coverage. I'm not sure in your area, but in New York City and in Miami, there's a lot of local news coverage in relation to the ridiculous, anything that's getting out of hand. 9 times out of 10, I'd say that's usually when things are probably going to start to reverse and go lower. Now, I'm not saying rents are going to turn around and come down tomorrow. But if I had to bet, I think we're going to see lower rental prices, or at least just rental prices that aren't going to continue to go gangbusters to the upside over the next coming months into Christmas. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised about rents not necessarily going down, but not necessarily going up as fast as they once had. So this sort of brings me back to what we've been talking about in relation to the CPI numbers. And a lot of people will say, oh, inflation is falling, it's going down month over month. Well, inflation is still going up. but the prices are just going up a little bit slower, right? So if you look at the breakdowns of year over year and month over month, a lot of the categories within the CPI report, they're still going up. So prices are still going up, but it's not those crazy jumps as we've seen before. So just let's talk about housing for a minute. I'm sure if any of you were in the housing market, maybe a first-time single-family home buyer over the last year or two, the homes, 90% of the time, the homes that you were looking at last year were probably, I don't know, $50,000 to $70,000 more than they were pre-pandemic. So I think that type of frothiness, that type of massive jump where housing prices are increasing 20% year over year, 18% year over year, I think a lot of that stuff is going to cool off. But it's very, very possible that we'll just revert back to a normal trajectory where the prices of homes are going up 2% a year, 3% a year. However, the last thing I'll say about that, and I'll read some of the comments, is I think what we may start to see is the sticker price may go up. So let's say if the home you were looking to buy a $400,000 piece of property, then it goes up $400,000 piece of property, excuse me, and then that particular property goes up by $10,000. Well, factoring in inflation, it's a good possibility that after inflation, real estate returns could be negative over the next couple of years. That's also a big possibility. But I don't think that we should be fooled by a lot of the media when they say just because sales are down month over month and year over year, that it's going to be a new 2008 style crash. It's just really not what we're seeing. I think if you really dig deep and analyze that data, we're just sort of seeing things revert back to the mean. And usually in financial markets, when we're talking about equities, stocks, real estate, after you have these massive exorbitant boom and bust cycles, or a boom cycle, you'll usually have prices taper off and come down and revert to some sort of a mean. So I think that's probably what we're going to see in real estate. Hey, Lillis, is my neighbor's condo in Augusta, Georgia. Went on the market for $160. A similar condo was for sale last year for $125. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean that's so Lila, how long did it take to sell that, or is it still on the market? And I'm wondering, what is the demand looking like for your friend? Are they getting a lot of hits, a lot of people coming to see the condominium, or sort of what is the demand looking like for that? Hey, Vinny is here. Welcome, Vinny. Says, hey, Tom, to your inflation point. Own a restaurant, 40-pound case of chicken thigh went from $40 a case January 2022 to $110 a case in the summer, August 20. Really? Dude, that's insane. Or August 2020, I think you mean. Yeah, that's insane, dude. I don't know how, I don't even know how you would manage or operate a business like that. You must have to be raising prices constantly on the customers. That's insane. I want to show you guys this building. We haven't seen it in a while in the streams. But this is 1000 Museum. It's right here on Northeast 11th Street. And I believe David Beckham has a residence here. And if you look at some of the photos on Google Maps, it has a helicopter pad at the top. It's a pretty ridiculous building here. Austin city limits, as housing demand has gone up in New Mexico. Interesting. Bob says, time to buy your own chickens. You know, it's funny, Bob, I actually have a lot of chickens or roosters or whatever you want to call them walking around my neighborhood. Hey, Vinny says, thanks for your channel, bro. Love it. Appreciate it, Vinny. So, Vinny, I actually have a question for you because a few days ago on the stream, we were talking about Tyson Foods earnings report. And one of the interesting things to me that the CEO said on the earnings call is that, so here's what I noticed. Tyson used this terminology and then Walmart also used this terminology. And the verbiage that they used was the term called trading down, okay? And if you watched the stream last night, you know that the CEO of Walmart used the term trading down at least 50 to 60 times on the earnings call. So my question is, the CEO of Tyson said that the sales of their red meat products have substantially gone down. However, the sales of chicken and other poultry products have gone up almost 100% from people or consumers shifting their spending habits to cheaper things. So are you sort of seeing any of that in your restaurant business? From customers that come in, maybe they're not ordering a steak, maybe they're ordering more chicken, or is that really not applicable to your business? I'd be interested to see your thoughts on that. But this is 1000 Museum. This is one of my favorite buildings in the United States. It almost looks like a scorpion. It's kind of weird. Hey, OFs is rather than a pandemic. Dog, I had pandemic egg layers. Good decision. Yeah, that is a good decision. Hey, Emilio J. It's time to open my iguana restaurant. Funny. Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of iguanas here in Miami. I can tell you that right now. Dusty Cole is here. Welcome. So here's what the report did say. And I think that one of the things I want to go into is a concept called rate sensitivity. And maybe you're a real estate agent. We actually do have a lot of real estate agents that watch this stream. So I'd be interested to know if we break it down by category. So let's just take, for example, existing home sales in the price range of around $100,000 to $250,000. Well, though, if we look at it on a year-over-year basis, the share of existing home sales that closed in a price range of roughly $100,000 to $250,000 were 31% lower year-over-year. So if you look at that at face value, you may be sitting at home thinking, well, that sounds a little weird. Wouldn't people want to be getting into bargain real estate or lower value real estate because prices are going up, so maybe they'll settle for a property that may be a little bit less? That's what I thought. So check out this other statistic. If we check out the homes that were sold in the price range of about $750,000 to $1 million, well, price declines only went down about 8% year over year. So the overall volume of sales for homes in the United States, again, existing homes, this is not new construction, this is existing homes, it was only about 8% lower. If we ratchet it up another notch to homes in the United States, existing homes sold above $1 million, only down 13%, but the price, in the price range of $100,000 to $250,000, those home sales fell off a cliff and they cratered. So here's my thesis as to why that probably is. If we think about the average consumer that's looking to buy a house, I mean, first of all, when I saw these numbers, I'm like, is there even a house in the United States for $100 grand? Now, I know there are, but I'm just sort of making a joke because I'm, being from New York and Miami, you pretty much can't find anything for that. This is the Paramount Tower, by the way. So I think it has to come down to rate sensitivity or interest rate sensitivity. So if we think about where rates were in 2021, well, you can get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage for 3%. Now, in all fairness, rates did go up about 100% to 6%. They have since come down. But if your budget is for a home in the range of $100,000 to $250,000, you probably can't afford to eat that extra cost or the couple more points in the interest rate hikes, right? I think that makes sense. If you are a particular home buyer that's looking and your budget is, let's say, $750,000 to over $1 million, well, maybe a couple more points on the mortgage isn't going to make a difference for you, because if you're looking at that price range anyway, well, maybe you can afford to buy cash. So maybe some of those deals are actually closed with all cash, so you don't even have to worry about the financing costs. And that's actually what the data shows. A lot of homes in that particular price range, a lot of them are not financed. A lot of them are purchased all cash. So I thought that was kind of interesting in the report. Hey, Andy is here from South Korea. Says, hey, Tom, good to see you, Andy. Welcome. Dutchman says 100K, yes, a double wide trailer. Yeah, definitely $100,000 in the housing market. Definitely doesn't go as far as it used to, I know. GX72 says, howdy, good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome. OF says the middle class is dead. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It definitely seems like I've always said, and I think we've talked about this a lot on the streams, that I think class mobility is getting a little bit more difficult, and I think the data shows that, right? And a lot of times when we walk around New York City, we'll sort of take anecdotal data points saying, well, look at all these restaurants, they're all packed. There's people out, there's tourists spending money, but I think it's very segmented to a higher earning income demographic. I think ever since the lows of 2008, with the artificially low interest rate policies, I think this has exacerbated a wealth gap or a wealth divide. And Ray Dalio actually talks about this theory in his book, if you guys want to check it out. This is the beautiful Freedom Tower here in downtown Miami. Right across the street or adjacent to the FTX Arena where the Miami Heat play. Hey, Grand Street 1 says there are 0 apartments in Hoboken, New Jersey for under $300,000, but apartments $500,000 to $150,000, or I'm going to take it, you say 1.5 million, are selling at or near asking and selling within 20 days. Yeah, so exactly what Grand Street said is pretty much what the report said today. So to piggyback off of what Grand Street said, it says the typical home in July, and again, this is existing home sales, okay, so used homes, went under contract in 14 days. So this is why I sort of sometimes get frustrated when I watch CNBC, is because they'll just tell you the headline, okay? They'll tell you the headline and they'll say, oh my God, existing home sales are down 6%. This is Armageddon. This is the slowest pace since 2015. If we look at year over year, sales did drop about 20%. Sales declined to about 4.81 million units. Yes, I understand that's the slowest since 2015, but at least, sort of dig a little bit deeper into the report, right? If you're going to say that the housing market is in Armageddon, and this is going to be another 2008, but then if you look at the report, it says the typical home in July went under contract in 14 days. That's ridiculous. That is like extremely, extremely fast. Now, again, I've said and I'm totally open to being wrong. I may be wrong. I actually hope I'm wrong, because if we've been listening to all these videos, right? And again, at the beginning of the stream, when we just started streaming, I've been noticing a trend here, okay, with a lot of local news sites, especially in New York City and in Miami, running a lot of the local news stories and interviewing people about the egregious rent increases. And usually when you start to see a lot of that stuff in the mainstream media, that usually signals something's going to turn or something's going to pivot. So on one hand, everybody's complaining about the high cost of living, the acquisition cost for a single family home, and the high cost of rent. But then on the other hand, everybody's petrified for another 2008 style moment. Well, wouldn't you want prices to come down? I think in order to have a sustained long-term trajectory or long-term growth in the economy, you're going to need prices to fluctuate, go down, go up, find a bottom and then return higher again. Because we've always revert back to this study, and this was the largest study of millionaires ever done, of first-generation millionaires in America. And the vast majority of first-generation net worth is actually made up in the equity value of their homes, right? So not necessarily liquid cash, not necessarily stocks, not necessarily, bonds. Wow, check out, this is a really good shot of the Freedom Tower here. It's made up in the equity of your home. So wouldn't you want prices to abate a little bit, prices to come down, allowing new buyers to come into the market and have an opportunity to acquire a property? So I don't know, it's just the news flow is very perplexing to me these days. But I think the good news is I think you're going to start to see things subside a little bit. Hey, Sunshine, New York City, good to see you. Hopefully you are well in New York. You know, this is another one of these ultra luxury apartments that they just built. I think the average rent in this building is like $5,000. So kind of similar to New York. Brad's brains says people have become unrealistic. First-time buyers expect to own too much house, and everyone thinks 6% is an insane number. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I agree with that, Brad. You know, I was having this conversation with my friend today, because when I was back on Long Island, I had to have my friend give me a ride somewhere. So my friend, and this is going to be a quick story, I promise, I won't bore you guys. But my friend picked me up in his car, drove me to do whatever I had to do. And I noticed that my friend got a new car. I was like, dude, this thing is insane. He's like, oh no, this is just like the stock, like base model from the dealership. And I was like, wait, this is the base model? Like this thing is, because I don't really drive, right? And the only car we have in my family is like a 2010 Toyota. Gets us from point A to B. But I think the American lifestyle or expectation is crazy. You know, a base model car these days has heated seats, cooled seats, leather interior, all of these crazy tricked out electronics. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's why all this stuff is so expensive. So I don't know, I think if things are getting expensive, maybe, you know, just have a reduction in lifestyle, I guess. You know, I would love to see a study on how much square footage the average American actually uses in their home. Do you think, okay, let's take a little bit of a poll. What do you guys think? Do you think the average American actually utilizes the majority of the square footage in their home? Or do you think a lot of it is just too much space? Now, I could be wrong here, and here's the reason why I may be wrong. Obviously, coming from New York, I'm used to living in like a literal shoebox. I'm talking about spaces that are less than 400 square feet, sometimes smaller than that. So when I moved down here and I moved into a house that was, I think it's just under 1,500 square feet, to me, I perceive that as like a mansion. Like I don't even have enough stuff to fill the house with. I mean, there's so much space. So I don't know. I guess it just comes down to, do you really need all that space? Who knows? Hey, Bourbon Buddy 1, what's up, dude? Says I have $12.50 and it's more than enough for 2 adults and 2 kids. Bourbon Buddy, I think you're my pal from Twitter, dude. Love your Twitter feed there. But yeah, I mean, I could be going crazy just because I'm from New York and I'm used to living in a shoebox. I was telling my mom the other day, I'm like, this house is so massive, and it's not a big house. It's less than 1,500 square feet. But I'm like, even with the Airbnb people being here and the tenants, I'm like, this place is still massive to me, so who knows. Hey, British Gray is here. This is good Thursday evening, Tom. What's up, British Gray? We're standing right across the street from Bayside Marketplace. Photos from around New York says in urban planning circles, there is talk about trying to revamp the use of front yards in suburbia. That would be an interesting, there. Yeah, Carbon says most of the space is empty. Tucson says we downsized from 3,000 square feet to 1,700 square feet last year, and it's plenty for 2 people. Oh my gosh, that's huge. That's huge. You know, when I moved here, when I got my place here, I couldn't believe like how big the front and the backyards were. But when you compare that to somewhere, like let's say if you bought property in like Texas somewhere, it's like not big at all. But coming from New York, it's just a totally different perspective on things. And so as it relates to the topic for tonight in terms of existing home sales and people complaining that everything's so expensive, I mean, I don't know. Do you really need 2,500 square feet? Do you really need like a den? I don't know. I'm not justifying and saying, it's the consumer's fault. It's certainly not. I think much of this has to do with obviously the stuff we talk about every night on the stream with the Federal Reserve, artificially low interest rates. I don't know, just a thought. Hey, 444 Truth Teller says, hey everybody, shout out from San Diego, California. Good to see you, Truth Teller. San Diego, California, I believe was one of the particular neighborhoods or areas in California that saw the most price appreciation in single family homes. A lot of people moving out of San Francisco, moving to San Diego for a little bit more space. Destructionist, good to see you, welcome. Mike C says, people with 2,000 plus square feet typically have room that never gets used, often the dining room. So that's another good point. I have a pretty decent sized kitchen. And again, relative to other places, it's probably actually pretty small. But in New York City, we have like if you don't want to spend like $5,000 on rent in New York City, you're eating off of like a little hot plate. So it's not actually like a kitchen. And I find myself never utilizing almost any of it. Like none of the space in the kitchen. So I think you're right. Let's see who else we have. Hey, Tish TV is here. Says hello everybody. I agree, Americans expect way too much. Yeah, I was just thinking about the quality of life in comparison to like other places around the world. And if you look at the average new car, they are just ridiculous, like ridiculous. I was in my buddy's car, and when he told me, he's like, no, this is like the cheapest base model. I was like, dude, this thing is insane. Like the quality of life here, I believe is unmatched. And I think that, as Americans sort of get blinded by their own consumption sometimes, we forget what it's like in other countries. And the only reason why I bring that up is because I actually, I went to a wedding recently where I saw my buddy who was doing months long deployments all over the world. He was in Agadez, Africa, other parts, he was in the Middle East. And he was telling me the same thing. He's like, we have like no idea. Even the people that are making like $45,000 a year in the United States, we have no idea what life is like in other places. My friend was like, we would go into somebody's home and either do like a search or something, and he's like, these people don't even have running water. Their house is literally like a hut. So I don't know, maybe it's just a little bit of skewed perception, but who knows. Hey, Best Bets TV, this is Tom. So do you prefer New York City over Miami? I'll tell you this, I think I prefer Miami during the winter months, and I prefer New York City during the summer months. That's probably what I would say there. One of the main reasons why I moved here, obviously you guys know I'm in enterprise tech sales. A lot of clientele has been creating satellite offices in Southern Florida. So to sort of stay close to the clients, I wanted to set up shop down here as well. This is also another nice building here, really nice. But yeah, just to review, so sales of homes in $100,000 to $250,000 range were down 31% year over year. Sales of single family homes in the range of $750K to $1 million, only down 8%. And then anything over $1 million was only down 13%. So the biggest hit was homes in that range of 100 to 250K. And I believe, now I don't know the correct answer, I think we could talk about it in the chat, but I think it has to do with financing. How rate sensitive is your customer, right? If you're dealing in ultra luxury real estate, well, your customer's probably not going to be that rate sensitive, right? If you're looking at Billionaires Row real estate in like 157 Central Park Tower, this particular clientele is probably not going to be that rate sensitive. It doesn't matter if they're paying a couple extra basis points on the mortgage. If anything, they'd probably just buy it all cash. So I don't know. And this is sort of brings me back to the conversation about, are you willing to trade down in lifestyle to have a decent place to live? I mean, the place that I have, it's not like luxurious, but it's beautiful. It's near the ocean. It's affordable. I think my overhead per month is maybe $1,500, and that's with the taxes, insurance, the mortgage, everything. So I don't know, maybe it's just there needs to be a realistic reset of expectations for buyers. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. So now we're looking at the Citibank building, which is right next to the Intercontinental Hotel. Yeah, Roberts' Billionaires Row is majority purchased in all cash. Also a lot of foreign buyers too. I think a lot of maybe foreign entities use Billionaires Row to like park money, things like that. That's possible. Hey, 61 says, hello Tom, we live in a 1,500 square foot townhome with 3-3 configuration, and most of the time we only use our master bedroom. Thinking about downsizing. Yeah, I mean, there we go. You know, I think there really needs to be a study just to say, how much space do you actually use? You know, I think living in New York for so long has taught me to just make the most of my space. And I don't really have that much stuff, right? I mean, I have my library of books, and that's really the only thing that's really worth a lot, you know, my library, but who knows? Hey, Gene is here from Canada. Good to see all of our Canadians. Says, hey Tom, I worked in Haiti, Mali, and Africa for a few weeks at a time. They are so poor. It was so sad because children would come up and beg for US dollars. Man. Wow, and you couldn't give it out because it would cause riots. That's insane. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, during times like this, and I don't really want this stream to come off as I'm justifying all the inflation, but I think there needs to come a time where I think the average American, when they're doing their budget, when they're sitting down with their significant other, to say, okay, what do we actually need, and sort of what is a want as opposed to a need? You know, do you need like the kitchen with the new marble granite countertops that's going to cost another, you know, 10 grand? Or could you look for below market value real estate where maybe the kitchen just needs to be gutted, or, you know, the floors just need a good polishing? I think you're going to find a lot of deals like that. So I'll tell you my experience now that we're on the topic of real estate. I'm going to tell you my exact experience in 2020 and 2021 when I was really, really aggressively looking for a deal here in Southern Florida. And here's what I noticed. Wow, check out the Miami Tower tonight, lit up in like a purplish blue. Looks kind of cool. So here was my experience. And again, this is anecdotal, and it could have been for a couple reasons, because during the pandemic, what we saw was a lot of, let's just say, wealthy Northeastern people trying to escape the lockdowns and things like that in New York and Boston and other cities, and coming down here. So I noticed as I was going to these open houses with my real estate agent, as I was just looking at homes, the homes that had the most volume of traffic, or people that were actually walking the street looking at these houses, everything was totally gut renovated, remodeled. Okay, so as a real estate investor, especially if you're young and you're trying to find a way that you can generate alpha or buy a piece of real estate that's below market value, either fix it up and rent it to raise the rents, you're never gonna be able to generate any additional value in that property if everything is already priced in, right? So if the previous owner already, you know, did a gut renovation on the particular property, if they put in new granite countertops, all of these crazy, you know, whirlpool tubs in the master bathroom, that's already priced in, and you're paying top dollar. So the homes that needed a little bit of work, you know, there was septic tank issues, nobody wanted to look at it. Like, nobody. And with my house, I think the reason why I got it for a really good deal, I didn't pay over ask. I actually got a closing credit from the seller during all this madness when people were paying over asking, is because there was an issue with the septic tank. Oh, I think we got dirt bikes here. So there was an issue with the septic tank, and everybody who walked through the property didn't want to deal with it. So, and I think that was very telling of the sign of the times that we were in, right? Everybody was flush with cash, everybody was making a lot of money, everybody nobody really wanted to put in the work. So I still think, especially in this market, you can find below value, below market real estate deals, but you may need to put a little bit of elbow grease into it, right? You know, the floors may be disgusting. The paint may be so entrenched with cigarette smoke that you need to just gut the whole thing, put new drywall up, repaint it. But it takes work. I don't know, that's just something I noticed when I was searching for a place during the pandemic and a little bit after. All the places that were spit polished clean, everybody was like falling over themselves to get it. But you know, if there was weeds growing in the driveway, if the gutters were all filled with dirt from like 20 years, nobody cleaned out the gutters, nobody wanted to touch the deal. Nobody. Hey, Hemp Lord is here. Says, good evening, Tom. What's the word? Welcome, Hemp Lord. Good to see you. Emilio J, good to see you. DA says, new septic tanks are expensive. Yeah, so here was the issue with the septic tank. There was a crack in it, but you don't need, I mean, long story short, I have family in the construction business. We sort of know about this stuff. You could just pump it, pressure wash the entire thing, reseal it with hydraulic concrete, you save yourself 25 grand. It's that simple. Hey, Wendy England is here. Good to see you, Wendy. Hopefully you're well. I see you out and about from Toronto, Canada. So another crazy housing market is the housing market in Toronto. Really, really nuts. Robert says there could potentially be a lot of money laundering on places like Billionaires Row. Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird. So when people think of Billionaires Row, I think they think of New York City, right? I think that was the original Billionaires Row, obviously. But I think number two is going to be down here. Number one, I would probably say Sunny Isles Beach. But if you look right here, this building is called the Aston Martin Residences. And this thing is so ridiculous. I think all of the units are actually accounted for, all sold. But these are ultra luxury, ultra high-end apartment buildings. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're in this sort of housing affordability crisis. Because I'm not going to generalize and say all, but I'm going to say there's a lot. A lot of the new permits for new development are these top-of-line, high-end luxury apartments. And very, very seldom do they get permits for affordable housing or just like middle-of-the-road rents where normal people can afford it. I think we're sort of reaping the, I wouldn't say benefits, but you sort of reap what you sow. And I think ever since 2008, a lot of developers have been really, really scared to build like crazy. So we still have quite a big shortage or a lack of inventory on the market. Yeah, out and about, it's like, oh my gosh, Toronto is crazy expensive here. Yeah, Toronto, I think, may be a little bit more expensive than New York, if I'm not mistaken. But check this view out. This is one of my favorite parts of Miami. We are overlooking the W Hotel and Residences. Hey, Dan Zhang, good to see you. Dan Zhang says everything in Long Island City is now luxury apartments. That's why the whole place is so expensive. So Dan, speaking of Long Island City, and this was sort of why I did this topic for tonight, I believe if you go to CBS 2 News New York, they actually did a little bit of a segment on the crazy amount of price hikes in Long Island City. So check that out. I should have programmed it into the Nightbot, but yeah, Long Island City is crazy expensive. Let's see if we see any dolphins tonight. Let's see. Sabrina Fair is here. Good to see you, Sabrina. Welcome. Alfonso Gonzalez says the entire property to your right is being demolished. Maybe it was a property I walked past already. Yeah, but the buildings down here are really crazy. So we are now overlooking Brickell Quay. So the only issue I'd say about Brickell Quay, even though it's a very, very nice place, the only way to get there is this teeny bridge right here. So there's one little walking lane and I think a 2-lane highway to get there, but it's essentially on its own island here. Martin, I'm not too sure. Hey, Penelope says, evening, Tom and everybody. Good evening, Penelope. Welcome. What's next is I can't get over how modern Miami looks. Yeah, Miami is definitely a beast of its own. Check out the top of the Aston Martin building here. Really crazy. But here's a statistic for you, for all of the people, and again, I could be wrong. I always like to be transparent and say, look, I could be wrong, but let's look at inventories. Let's check out inventories in the United States. So there were about 1.32 million homes for sale in July. That is unchanged from the same time last year. Current prices, or the current pace, represents about 3.3 months of supply. So we only have about 3.3 months of supply, and the average home sold in July went under contract in 14 days. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think in normal times, I'm talking about pre-pandemic, it usually takes maybe 60 to 90 days in a normal market for a home to be sold, to go under contract. So my fear is that a lot of this frothiness that was a result of the pandemic is going to teach single-family home buyers and sellers, like let's say if it's your first time selling a house, that, oh my gosh, if my house doesn't sell within 14 days, the market's going to crash, I have to slash my price. No, this is the market resorting back to a normalcy here. You know, for a home to go under contract in 14 days is still really liquid market. So I just wanted to point that out. Dan Zhang says there's also a Porsche building in Miami, is there? Yes, so the Porsche Design Tower, here I'll give you guys a shot of the Aston Martin building again. But the Porsche Design Tower is in Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. And right next to the Porsche Design Tower is actually going to be the brand new Bentley building. So it seems like there's a trend here in Southern Florida with luxury residences being named after auto manufacturers. But I believe that is on the northernmost point of Sunny Isles Beach. It's going to be called the Bentley building. And it should open right up around 2026. But I believe I read an article in the Next Miami. So if anybody's not familiar with the Next Miami, definitely subscribe to it. It's free, and you'll get all the hottest and latest news in real estate down here. And I think all of the units in the Aston Martin building are sold out. It's not even complete yet. It's not even built. And it's sold out. Totally sold out. Hey, Just the Guy is here. Welcome, Just the Guy. Good to see you. So this is the Epic Hotel, and you can actually see the Bank of America Tower in the back. But the view from this building is really nice. Extremely nice from this one. Hey, Natalie says, good evening, Tom and everybody. The Empire State Building is lit up in blue and it looks stunning. Ooh, you got to send me a picture of that. Drop the picture in the Discord, please, if you could take one. So we'll have a little bit of a guess here. So does anybody know, and I guess you could Google it, but does anybody know what the median selling price for a single family home was last month? So the median home price, I'll give you a hint. It was up 10% year over year. So even though sales volumes are declining on a year-over-year basis, price is still up about 10%, which is a huge jump. But does anybody want to take a crack at it? What do you think the median home price was in July? What do you guys think? Ooh, ABX Girl, 406K. That is so close, man. 450, 375, 400. Bourbons is 400. So the ABX Girl and Bourbon Buddies almost hit it right on the nose. Dusty Cole's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know either, but I'm going to tell you guys anyway. It's $403,800 for the median priced home that was sold. And that's up 10% year over year. And again, I'll repeat, sales activity slowed in the lower end of the market and didn't really abate that much in the higher end. And again, I think that's because, you know, people that are looking for deals, well, low-priced homes, they're more rate sensitive, right? So maybe if your budget is $250,000 and you only have 10% to put down on the property, and mortgage rates are 5.25%, you know, it's a lot different than when rates were 3%. But still, we're seeing this weird dichotomy with home prices going up as sales volumes dry up a little bit. But it doesn't necessarily mean, as if you watch CNBC today or Bloomberg, that it means there's Armageddon 2008. It's not what the data is showing. It's just not. Hey, Sherry Rodrigo, good to see you. Welcome. So check out this view. This is overlooking the City National Bank building, or Miami Tower. Hey, Gene, says Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Aston Martin building must be financed by Saudi capital, since I noticed Aramco on the building. Yeah, Aramco is one of the most profitable companies in the world. So I'm not sure if it's financed by them. It could just be like a sponsorship deal, but I actually don't know that. Here's what I do know. Does anybody remember the horrible tragedy that happened at Surfside? So, what is it? I'm gonna say 10 miles north of here. There was a really just egregious tragedy that happened. There was a condominium that collapsed in Surfside that claimed the lives of over 90 people. And I believe a Saudi developer bought the land and they're going to build like ultra luxury apartment units on that. But I'm not sure if it's the same people that are responsible for building the Aston Martin building. That I'm not sure. If you guys want to do a quick Google search, I think he's a very famous developer. You guys could let me know in the chat. Yeah, more than 98 people. That's horrible. Yeah, Al Baker's like, scaffolding, we must be in New York again. Mike C says, Tom, the Aston Martin building has nothing to do with Aston Martin. Maybe they're just using their name. Well, I know in the lobby there's like a one-of-a-kind limited edition Aston Martin in there. Maybe it's like a marketing thing. Maybe they're leasing the name. So this is one of my favorite spots in Miami. This is the bridge that takes you over into Brickell, as well as the Miami's Wall Street. So a lot of the Latin American investment banks are down here. Robert says, Tom, do you agree with nationalized oil companies? I don't know. So you want to know a crazy statistic? Oh, guys, we could see some fish in the water here. So on the stream a couple weeks ago, we were covering all of the major earnings reports from Chevron, from ExxonMobil, and Shell. So those three companies combined in Q2 brought in about 40, I think it was 42 or 46 billion dollars in profits collectively. That's insane. That's literally windfall, waterfall profits. Do you know what Saudi Aramco did? They did more than all three of those companies combined in Q2. I think just shy of $48 billion in Q2 alone. To me, that is like unfathomable. Sometimes if you look at the lights at the boats, you could see fish swimming around. Sometimes you'll see a dolphin or something like that. Yeah, Ryan Royal's like 48 billion. I can't even wrap my head around that. You know, some people speculate that there are some families, like the royal families in Saudi Arabia, allegedly they could be trillionaires. Right now, I know it's not reported, but it's sort of like the word on the street that those people actually have trillions of dollars in wealth. I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely wouldn't be surprised. So right in front of us here is the Bank of America Tower. Hey, Mark Davis, is Tom. Whose wedding was that on your IGs? Was it yours? It was not mine. It was actually the first wedding I've ever been to. But it was my good buddies from college. I went to the wedding. It was good time. It was on Long Island, very nice venue. Yeah, Lil Yo's like Miami is fun if you want to do bodybuilding, lifting. So speaking about going to the gym, so I'll tell you guys this quick story, and I think it's relevant because a lot of the times on the streams we talk about like productivity hacks and things like that. So I used to work out quite regularly, quite frequently, because when I was in college I played soccer and we had to do it. It was mandatory to work out. We would have sessions where we would have to go and things like that. So, but ever since the pandemic started, I totally stopped going to the gym completely. Haven't been to the gym, lifted a weight in probably a year and a half. But you guys know I tend to be pretty good in cardio. Like I could bang out 13 miles a day without even thinking. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get back into a routine. I'm gonna start doing it. And I went to the gym for the first time in a year and a half today. And number one, here was my one takeaway. Well, I have two takeaways. Here's number one. Number one reinforces the idea that if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. And that means if you're not training your body, you're gonna lose all the strength. I mean, the strength that I used to have in college was ridiculous. I would say about 90% of that in terms of like heavy lifts, like deadlifting, all that stuff is totally negated. Just from only a year and a half of not doing it. So what do you think that means for your cognitive health as well? So if you're not studying, if you're not taking new courses, if you're not constantly training, that ability is going to decline as well. It's with anything in life. So the second thing I noticed is once I started doing the workout, almost automatically, all of my brain fog that I tend to have after about 12 o'clock totally went away. My mood improved almost immediately, and I had 10x more energy than I used to have. And I tend to think I'm a pretty energetic person, but just from a small 20-minute workout, because I'm just working my way back into things, my mood increased automatically, just when I lifted the first weight. Mood increased, the brain fog went away, I was more focused, more alert. And then when I went back to my desk at my office, I felt like I could just run through a wall. So I challenge you guys. I think there's many people that fall into the same situation as me. Maybe you would, go for a jog on your lunch break. Maybe you would lift some weights, or maybe you would just do some push-ups. Find a corner in your office somewhere, bang out some push-ups. Maybe you stopped doing that because of the pandemic. I challenge you. Try to start doing it again. And it's gonna suck at first because, as I was going through the reps, I was like, oh my gosh, I really just don't want to be here. But if you push through and you just do a little bit each day, it's going to compound into a hell of a lot of progress. So even if you just go to the gym, do two sets of 10 on whatever, and just do that 5 days a week for a month, and then 2 months, 3 months. I think you're going to see a pretty massive transformation there. And that can apply to your work life, that could apply to anything. Maybe you're a salesperson and you're falling behind in your sales, you're not hitting your quota. I've been there before, and you feel like you're in a slump. What I would challenge you to do is go to the office every day, because sometimes, here's what will happen to a salesperson. I know that a lot of salespeople, tech salespeople, even bankers, if you're an investment banker, you're a salesperson. A lot of people will get demoralized if they have a couple bad months, and then they'll stop doing the activity. And if you stop doing the activity of making calls, sending the emails, taking your clients out to eat, things like that, you're going to go into a perpetual loop. It's going to create a perpetual cycle downward. It's going to be really, really hard to get out. One of the easiest ways to get out of that is don't think about the results. Just wake up and say, I'm going to make just 10 calls. Even if the phone feels like it weighs 20 million pounds, just pick up the phone and dial 10 numbers. Even if the people hang up on you, or even if they don't even pick up, just dial 10 people, and then come back the next day and do the same thing. Then come back the next day and do the same thing. Do that for a week, and then say, okay, now I'm gonna make 15 calls, and just get through it. You don't even have to do it the right way. Just get yourself in the environment of the motion of doing the activity, and then once you have a little bit of a break, you're gonna get hooked again, and you're gonna take off like a freaking rocket ship. Trust me, try to do it. Yale says heavy compound movements and back movements will supercharge your test, but diet's gotta be good so you don't overstress the body. Yeah, so my diet tends to be very good. I tend to eat very healthy. But yeah, you're right. You're 100% right on that. Dee says the swimming is my thing right now, which is going to be ending soon, and it does make me feel better. Yeah, swimming, I would say, is actually better than walking or running. Swimming is very, very difficult. Swimming is no joke. If you could swim, you're in very, very good shape. Hey, Just the Guy says thanks for the tips and the stream. No problem, Just the Guy. But yeah, I usually we only talk about finance and things like that, but the results today were so mind-blowing for me that I'm like, man, just think about all the people that were locked down during the pandemic, myself included, that gave up a lot of their routines, right? Going to the gym. Maybe you didn't feel comfortable going back to the gym because there was too many people. You didn't want to get COVID. I get it. I'm respectful of everybody, but the gym was pretty clean. Everything was wiped down, and it's hard to get back into a routine once that routine is broken. But I challenge you, if you want to get back into a gym routine, or even, working out, it doesn't even necessarily mean you have to join a gym. Just go outside for 15 minutes and walk around the block. Do that for 7 days. Then bump that up to 20 minutes. Then bump that up to 30. And then it's going to compound into a whole lot. Yeah, Mike sees like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Yeah, Penelope's like, it's like catnip being held in front of you. Hey, out and about says my strength is coming back from cycling every day and long distance bike ride, 37 kilometers. 37K helped a lot, but I don't feel sluggish anymore now because it's the summer. Ooh, that's true too. So I struggled with that. We'll just wait for this light. These lights are like Long Island, New York lights. They are, wait. 2-hour red lights. Wait. Yeah, a big issue is in New York, or if you live in the Northeast, in the winter, You wake up, it's dark, you go to sleep, it's dark and it's freezing, so you don't feel like you want to do anything. I get that. Lil Yo says, Tom, there's some great gyms on Long Island. Bev, Francis, and Syosset. Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of it. I'll have to Google it when I get home. Hey, Paul Tricky's like, Tom, how was the golf game? So the golf game was good. My personal golf game is not very good. I've said this before. I think that, so if you took two people who never played golf in their life, which I don't really play golf, I think I'm better than the average person who's never played before, just because maybe I'm a little bit more athletic. But even if it's just like a person who maybe plays once a month, twice a month, something like that, they would probably beat me pretty easily, I think. Hey, Michelle K is here. Says, good evening, Tom and everybody. Welcome, Michelle. Destructionist says, people who have treadmills or exercise bikes could work out while watching the streams. So I think a lot of people do, which is awesome. But that's a good tip. That's a really good tip, Destructionist. What's next is, it seems to me that I walked more during the pandemic. There was nothing else to do and everything was closed. That's actually a pretty good point. I think the thing that was the most difficult for me during the pandemic was everything in Manhattan was totally closed, like literally everything. There may have been one coffee shop that was open, but since there was only one open, the line was wrapped around the block and they gave you your coffee through a little hazmat suit thing. So it's just, the whole vibe of it was horrible. And it was always dark. And I was still working my regular hours. And since I'm in the tech space and we would sell the solutions that would help people work remotely, we were so busy that I would wake up, I'd be on my computer, I couldn't even leave my desk to go get some lunch. And then after work, it was dark. So you just sort of feel sluggish, like you don't even want to do anything. Yeah, Ken's like closed a lot of deals over golf. That's true. But the most deals are closed over the golf course. Agreed. Hey, War Walker is here. What's up, War Walker? Welcome. So I'll turn it back over to you guys. Now that we've covered the topic for tonight, so existing home sales are down. We know that home sales fell about 6% in July. Sales dropped about 20% if we think about year over year. Sales declined to about 4.81 million units, the slowest pace since 2015. But think about your neighborhood, right? You know, one hedge fund manager in particular that I know, he gave me this really good piece of advice. He's like, sometimes analysts that work for the firm will get so wrapped up in consuming the news that they forget to take a walk around their block. And that really resonated well with me because it's so true. You know, a lot of the times I catch myself reading articles about New York City and Miami, and you can almost forget that you live there and you experience it every day. So I want to ask you guys, in the particular housing market that you're in, are you seeing homes sit on the market for a lot longer? Are you seeing price reductions everywhere? Are you seeing sellers, maybe your friend's trying to sell a house, you're trying to sell a house? Is there sort of like a pandemonium moment that's going on right now? Or do you think that things are just sort of subsiding back to the mean or just going back to normal? What are you guys seeing in your market? Hey, Lady O is here. What's up? Lady O, we're back in Miami, Florida. Good to see you. Lady O is from New Jersey. Wendy England says yes, sitting longer, not so many price reductions. Anonymous is analyst, the first 4 letters. Take the advice with a grain of salt. That's true. Penelope says, take time to smell the roses, Tom. You are so right. Flying off the shelf in the South still. Wow. So Penelope, I think Penelope is in the Tennessee market. Gene says, yes, Tom, markets are cooling down. I think Gene is in Montreal, Canada. Hey, Denise, New York City is here. Welcome. GX72 says it's getting back to normal with a little bit of a twist. Got it. Jonathan Francis, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that the rental market is still ripping faces off. Yeah, that it is. We'll talk about that. I think we're going to talk about that next. Mike C says we sold the house a couple of months ago and had to drop our price substantially. Wow. So Mike C, when you talk about, without getting into too much detail, I know I don't want to, I'm very respectful of people's privacy, but was it to a level, okay, I'll ask it like this. When you sold the home, did you feel good about the price? Where you're like, okay, I got a good deal? Or did it come to the point where you're like, oof, that one stung? Because even though you had to drop the price substantially could be substantially in relation to people paying, $100 to $2,000 over asking. So do you think you still got a good deal? Do you feel happy with the purchase price, or what do you think? Hey, Brad's Brain says, I'm gaining an SVC tech back who quit to sell mortgages a year ago. Are you serious? Yeah, Brad, that's what you call a shiny object syndrome. Paul Tricky says, no, they are selling for market value. I even talked to a few of them saying they are downsizing and keeping the cash. Okay, very nice. Thank you for that, Paul. Autumn Beauty says, seeing the price drop about 25 to 30,000. So I'm seeing a little bit of the same thing in Miami, but here's how I can explain it. Also on Long Island, by the way, I'm seeing the same exact thing on Long Island. Price reductions right around 20 to 30,000. But a lot of the listings that I've been looking at on Zillow, Street Easy, or whatever you want to call it, the homes that have price reductions are, I look at the listings and they are so ridiculous. Like I'm going to be very blunt. Not to be harsh, but I mean, these homes need a lot of work, like a lot of work. And I think it was very, very unrealistic for those homes to sell at those previous pandemic prices. So yeah, you may see the statistic that, this home prices are coming down 15 to 20%. But 15 to 20% from what? A ridiculous price where you look at it and it's like, okay, that's not even real. Like that shouldn't even be a price. That's what I'm sort of seeing here in Miami, mainly in like Aventura, Hollywood, Florida, like a little bit north of Miami. A lot of the homes that have those $25,000 to $30,000 price reductions, it's like, okay, dude, like even if it's reduced $25,000 to $30,000, it's still quite a ripoff. Hey, Abdullah is here. Hey, Abdullah, good to see you, my friend. Says, hey, Tom. Paul Tricky says, exactly. Hey, Isaac says, I went to downtown Miami in the day instead of night when visiting. Got to go back. Yeah, so this is the Brickell area. I think we're about to walk into Mary Brickell Village. It's one of my favorite spots. It sort of gives off a little bit of a vibe of Manhattan. It's like a mini Manhattan. Obviously not to the size and scale, but speaking of rental prices being crazy, if you want to live in a place where rents are astronomically high, you can live right here in Brickell. They're crazy. They're crazy. Yeah, Jonathan France, exactly. It was like, I believe that's called a correction. So I think, Jonathan, me and you are on the same page here. Anytime the market wobbles a little bit, not everything has to be Armageddon. Okay, and I think that's the point that I try to make And again, maybe it's because I'm too optimistic or whatever. I mean, I get a lot of criticism for being overly optimistic. But I think there is a difference between being optimistic and being delusional. And I think you can have delusional in a bear case and a delusional in a bull case. But any little wiggle in the housing market, any little uptick in defaults, everybody just screams, oh, it's going to be 2008 times 20 and the world's going to end. Not every correction and not every economic downturn has to be Armageddon. It could just be hard times where real estate prices come down 15%, things go back to normal, some people lose their jobs. But here's the thing, that's actually not bad. That's what traditional free market capitalism is supposed to do. In a cyclical economy, you're supposed to flush out all the irrational exuberance, flush out all of the irrational excess in the market, so then people that were diligent during those good times and that saved up cash can then go into the market, find a bottom, stabilize prices, and then a new cycle begins. But we are so reliant on the Federal Reserve that anytime the equity market goes down 20% or 30%, everybody's like, yep, that's it, the S&P 500 is going to zero. Like, it doesn't need to, that's not reality. And I think the Federal Reserve has sort of trained the average investor to be like that, which is unfortunate. Hey, Jonathan Francis, Tom, my friend in Miami, didn't sign the yearly contract. It went to month, and the rent doubled to almost $6,000. Oh my gosh. Where does he live, Jonathan? Does he live in one of these? $6,000. That's nuts. You know, I think if I were to put my entire property for rent, I think I could easily, within maybe 2 weeks, get like $3,500. Yes, forever. That's a good point. It says we need to pull down the home price, otherwise there will be more people move to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. Oh, Jonathan France Winwood. Okay, very nice. You know what I was thinking about? Could you imagine if you bought one of those, let's say if you rewind to 2014 and you bought one of those essentially like broken down shack homes in Winwood for like $100,000, you could easily sell that for probably 600 grand or get bought out by some developer that's going to build an ultra luxury tower. And I think a lot of people who have been in Winwood for a long time essentially hit the lottery, because that did not used to be too good of an area. I always think back to the original people that owned the brownstones in Brooklyn, New York. So I was listening to a good podcast. I'll give you guys a recommendation. I always give you guys some cool recommendations. There's a really interesting podcast that I stumbled across. It's called My First Million. And it's hosted by the guy who started The Hustle. Now, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with what The Hustle is, but it was sort of like a media company, a newsletter that was really interesting. I actually used to be subscribed to it. And they sold it to HubSpot for an undisclosed amount, but probably multi-millions of dollars. But in the podcast, this guy, Sam Parr, he was talking about, he's like, look, I just moved to Brooklyn, New York, and I was walking around one of my favorite neighborhoods of Brooklyn, Cobble Hill, Park Slope, and if you want to buy one of the brownstones, it's going to cost you $8 million. He's like, now who has $8 million to buy one of these things? Now, what I would say is a lot of old school New Yorkers, right? So my grandmother grew up in Ozone Park, Queens. You know, could you imagine if we held on to that house in Ozone Park, Queens for all these years? You could probably sell it for $1 million, probably more. So I think a lot of people, I'm not going to say all, right? Because there are a lot of extremely wealthy people that acquire these properties, but there are a large number of people that own particular brownstones in Brooklyn, especially in like Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, all that they've just had these homes in the family for quite a long time. And over the course of the last 50 years, they've just appreciated like crazy. So it's not uncommon where you run into these stories where you owned your home in Williamsburg, you owned a house in Park Slope, and you bought it for like $100,000 back in the day, and now it's like 2.3, 2.4 million. I think a lot of that stuff goes on too. So I'll give you guys a good restaurant recommendation down here in just a minute. Danzang's or a lot of those apartment in Flushing. Yes, back then you could bought it for like 200,000. Now you could have sold it for $1 million. So one of my first tech sales jobs out of college, I had a really good friend who, this guy Mike, and he was literally one of the first Asian families to move into Flushing, New York. Now I know that not everybody that watches the streams are from New York, so I'll give a little bit of context here. So Flushing Main Street is home to a very, very large Asian community in New York City. But it didn't always used to be like that. There was a time in New York where there was no Chinatown in Flushing. So my buddy, he's still one of my best friends to this day, he's like, we were one of the first Asian families to move into Flushing back in the day. And he's like, in 2008, I sold my parents' house. He's like, if I just held on to it, I could have sold it for like $3 million. You know, it's just about timing all those crazy markets. And I think that, you know, reinforces the fact that in real estate, I would even argue that 80% of the price is just location. I mean, location, location, location. Cynthia Beale says Brooklyn Heights is a beautiful place. Brooklyn Heights is fantastic. Isn't that where I forget what the college is. Maybe it's St. Joseph's College. Is that in Brooklyn Heights? I think St. Joseph's may be in Brooklyn Heights. Yes, Forever 18 says Flushing with many Chinese, Vietnamese, and Koreans. Yep. Very, very big. So Flushing is a bigger Chinatown than the one in Manhattan. Bob says, Tom, my uncle bought a 3-story in Richmond Hill in the 70s for $28K, sold it for $200K in the 80s, and bought a condo in Surfside and a house in Hialeah. Wow. You know, hearing stories like that, I think any of the real estate that I buy in my life, I don't think I'm ever going to sell it. Because I don't want to be one of those people that tell those stories, right? I don't want to tell my young coworker down the line, oh, I should have held on to that house. It would have been worth $1 million. Yeah, Best Bets TV says now Florida is close to New York in price now, unfortunately. So I think I was reading an article in Bloomberg, and I believe that Miami, Florida is now more unaffordable than New York City, I think, which is unfortunate as I just moved here, but in any event. Hey, 925 says, honestly, the worst scam that ever happened to me was paying to see Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather live. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not a big boxing guy, but I know he's very popular at boxing right now. Hey, Kirby is here, says Flushing the best Asian style cuisine in the whole city. I would agree. So my friend was actually Taiwanese, but he would actually take me to this place that would sell this very, very, well, extremely spicy soup, and I think it's called malatang, or malatang? I know, it's pretty good. Hey, Autumn Beauty says, hey Tom, the average house price in New York City is $750,000. During the recession, some of the houses were $250,000. Man. You know, I always say that I wish I was my age in like 2011, 2013, because I was just entering college in 2013, 2014. So I didn't have a job, I didn't have much money, but if you bought pretty much anything, you could throw a dart at any property in 2014, 2013, and you pretty much doubled your money, right? Is that fair to say, or is that a little bit too crazy? I think if you bought anything in 2011, 2012, 2013, 14, in terms of a home in New York State, in Florida, you pretty much probably doubled your money. Irish Lou, you live in Orange County. Love that. So I think this vacant lot here is obviously used for parking, but I think there's going to be an ultra luxury apartment building built here. This one is almost complete, this ultra luxury here. Yeah, Autumn Beauties, like I say that too, Tom. I just graduated and couldn't find a permanent job then, I know. Hey, marketing videography, so St. Francis is in Brooklyn Heights. Yeah, so good to see you again, by the way. My friend, marketing videography. So I used to go to Brooklyn Heights because we used to play St. Francis College. They have a really good soccer team. So our team would play their team in the preseason, and it was a good time. And we would play at Pier 5. Pier 5. And that is probably, I would say, top 3 or 4 views of the Manhattan skyline, right there from Pier 5. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll do these live streams about 5 days a week between New York City and Miami, Florida. Mr. Farva 85 says, Tom, I purchased in Seattle in February 2017. And we're more than doubled at this point, holding for life. Oh my God, dude. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on that. I love hearing things like that. Congratulations on your success. That's fantastic. If you ever come to Miami, you gotta eat at this place. It's one of my favorite, is it Argentinian or Argentine? I don't know how you call it. But this place is very, very good, right here. Very good restaurant. I'll try to show you guys the menu. Hey Jay says, were you just in New York in the rain? No, so what I'm going to be doing is uploading standalone videos as well. So for those of you guys who just want to join the chat, excuse me, join the chat if you're if you're at work or something and you just want to take a break, I'll be uploading those standalone videos too. Kumar says it's Argentine. Thank you for that. Copy that. That place is phenomenal. Good to see you, Kumar. Dan Zhang says, Tom, Miami streets look a lot safer than than Manhattan's. Well, to be fair, this is a very, very small little sample of Miami. This is what you call Mary Brickell Village, which is the more up and coming hip neighborhood where everybody wants to be in Miami. Martin says, when do you go back to New York, Tom? We usually do 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, depending on my client's needs. But I usually split my time 50-50. So I do not know when I'm going to be back in New York. It just really all depends on work. Tyrone, good to see you. I see Mohammed. Good to see you, Mohammed. Welcome. I don't think we've ever streamed down here. Let's check out down here. You know, one of the biggest takeaways that I have from Miami is it's so much cleaner than Manhattan. Very, very seldom do I see any like garbage on the floor. I guess maybe it's just the sanitation departments here are a little bit faster, or just people may respect the property, but it's extremely clean here. Keisha says, hey Tom, which one do you prefer, New York or Miami? I love them both. I love them both. I think I would always want to live in New York City as well as Miami, and that's sort of what I plan to do. Split my time 50-50 here. So in the WeWork where I work out of, Citadel Securities has their satellite office. So Ken Griffin and his buddies over there at Citadel, are now moving their operations from the one and only Chicago, Illinois, to Miami, Florida. So maybe tomorrow, depending on how busy the office is, I'll give you guys a quick WeWork tour before we stream. Can't believe tomorrow is already Friday. This week absolutely blew by. Hey, Marketing Videography says, I had an investor in my company who built a $300 million apartment portfolio, one building at a time, and never sell. Dude, that's the way to do it, man. Marketing Videography, I think that's going to be my plan. I'm just going to accumulate properties and never sell them. So let's say if all these people are right, because if you turn on, Bloomberg or CNBC, just because existing home sales fell 6% in July, everybody's calling for Armageddon. But again, I understand that's how the financial media works. They have to, sell their advertising. But let's say if it is another Armageddon, well, I mean, that's going to be an absolute gift from God for anybody who's under the age of 40. Because the people who bought real estate from 2011 to 2014 did extremely well. So when we're talking about investor psychology, what I see right now is very strange, okay? Because we have housing affordability is at an all-time record low for housing affordability. However, people are complaining about rents being so high, but everybody's also pounding the table and worrying about how there's going to be a housing market crash. Based upon your thesis, wouldn't you want prices to come down substantially so people could actually afford to live? I don't know. I think it's just they read the headline and they actually don't read into the data. If we read into the data, here's the reality. So if you look at homes sold in July between 100,000 and 250,000, that fell off a cliff, about 31% lower sales volumes in that category of homes in the price range of $100,000 to $250,000. Now, sales of homes in the $750,000 range to $1 million, that volume was only down 8%. Over $1 million, that was only down 13%. So to sort of repeat myself, what I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, I think this has to do with rate sensitivity. So if you're dealing with, let's say, an ultra high net worth individual that's going to be purchasing a $20 million apartment on Billionaires Row, he's probably not too concerned about where rates are. Generally speaking, I know that, it is a factor, but it's more of a factor for somebody who's looking at a $250,000 house who wants to put 10% down and finance the rest. If you have 100% move in rates, so this time last year you could get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage for roughly 3%, right, if you had good credit, good income and all that. However, now, and in all fairness, rates have ticked down a little bit. If you look at that 10-year US Treasury yield, we are now back below 3%. And even though the 30-year fixed rate mortgage it's technically not influenced by the Fed raising rates, it still is. It tracks almost in tandem with that 10-year Treasury yield. That's why I always say look at that 10-year US Treasury note. So rates have come down a little bit, but still, you're seeing strength in the, I would say, upper middle class to higher class Americans. So volumes are still good there. But for somebody that just wants a very affordable home, you're seeing, essentially, you could call that a crash in volume of sales. And I think this goes along with my overall long-term thesis about how the Federal Reserve is creating or exacerbating wealth inequality in America. Now, if you watch the Stanley Druckenmiller video, the interview, I forget which business school he was speaking at, but if you type !Druck, D-R-U-C-K in the chat, I want you guys to take some time out of your day, if you haven't already, and pay attention to what Stanley Druckenmiller is saying. He said during the pandemic, him and all of his buddies had the best financial year possible. And the reason for that is because, generally speaking, rich people with high education know how to navigate financial markets when the Federal Reserve is suppressing rates. The lower to middle class people do not know how to do that. So ever since the lows of 2008, what we've seen is suppressed rates, equity market going gangbusters, and the top 10% of Americans own about 99% of the equities. So when the Federal Reserve comes on the news, when Fed Chair Jerome Powell and Fed President Neil Kashkari says, the Federal Reserve is maintaining their quantitative easing and easy monetary policy because we are helping out the average individual, any particular data point or any study you want to revert back to says the exact opposite of what they're saying. Easy accommodative monetary policy does nothing but help the wealthy and the rich people get wealthier, right? If you have access to capital, if you have access to liquidity, you can use that capital to make even more money because you could borrow money essentially in perpetuity because money's free, right? If inflation is printing at 8.1% and you could borrow money at 3%, well, the inflation is just going to erode away all of your debt over time. And sophisticated high net worth individuals, accredited investors, they have the acumen to do this. The average American does not. So I think if we wanted to get very genuine about how we could help the average American, it would sort of just be like going back to what Paul Volcker did, jacking rates 20%, cutting off inflation at its head so Americans could actually afford to live. But here's the trade-off. Equity market's going to take a massive haircut if that happens. Massive. So I don't know. In any event, that's sort of how I feel. Hey, David Randall says, indeed, this is my opinion, is exactly the case of financial literacy or illiteracy. Good to see you, David. Welcome. Oh man, we've already been streaming for an hour and a half. I said it was only going to be an hour stream. I'll show you guys the entrance to the WeWork in McKinsey, and then we'll head out. Yeah, Paul Tricky says, not for nothing, I had a very good pandemic. And you know exactly what I mean. Somebody says, how many kilometers do you walk when you're live? I'm not too sure, to be totally honest, about the kilometers. I know in miles. So we usually do, I think I take about maybe 25,000 steps a day, I think. But I'm not too sure if I had to say it in kilometers, just to be totally honest. Peter Webley says, they won't help the average Americans, just their rich donors. Agreed. And I think this is the biggest argument here with the carried interest. Right, so we were I think we did an entire stream when we were back in New York about carried interest. I don't know, did we? I think we did. But essentially the reason why, the Ray Dalios of the world and, big private equity firms, VC firms, why they don't pay as much money in taxes as, let's say, me or you, is because they don't get taxed as ordinary income. Right, so let's say if you have a W-2 job and you make $250,000 a year, and you live in New York, well, you are going to get absolutely pile-drived by the top tick rate of all the state tax, federal tax, city tax. I think you get the picture. But if you're a big hedge fund manager, a partner at a private equity firm, since you're managing other people's money, so in the industry there's OPM. And then you can have like a family office, right? The vast majority of people take the OPM route. I mean, unless you're Bill Gates, George Soros, or something like that. If I wanted to start a hedge fund, I'm probably I don't have billions from selling Microsoft or something to start my own thing. So I'm going to pool money and raise money from investors. So when I pool money and raise money from investors in the industry, it's called OPM, or other people's money. So since I manage other people's money, I'm not getting paid based off of a W-2 or a salary. So let's say if I manage 100 million and that year I made 50 million, I am going to get taxed at, I believe the maximum is 20%, which is the capital gains tax, cap gains, as opposed to the top rate of about 37% if it was taxed as ordinary income. So the argument is, this is technically a tax loophole, because if you're a big, rich fund manager, you could say, well, I'm taking on the entrepreneurial risk. Let's say if you're in private equity or something. You're taking on the entrepreneurial risk to seek out these companies that are very small. Maybe they're even pre-revenue, maybe they have a little bit of revenue, not that clear of a path to profitability. You as the private equity firm, you come in with capital injections and your expertise. You're doing consulting with them, maybe you help them increase the operational efficiencies of the business. So the argument there is we should get taxed as capital gains when we sell out of our investment because we're not, on a salary. So if in the new Inflation Reduction Act, they had the opportunity to close that, and they didn't. Because if you look at the donors, if you look at like KKR, all these big financial firms, PEs, hedge funds, they lobby in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year to our politicians to keep the carried interest in place, hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's where I think a lot of the politicians are a little bit disingenuous when they talk about we want the billionaires to pay up. No, I'm not saying I agree with them. All I'm saying is I believe their verbiage is a little bit disingenuous, because at the same time, they virtue signal to you and say, oh, I'm going to make the billionaires pay all this money in taxes. But at the end of the day, they do a little bit of a bait and switch. And they say, oh, no, we're going to leave the carried interest, but we're going to tax the share buybacks at 1%. Anyway, I'll digress. Yeah, Anonymous is like, wait, you mean politicians lie? Funny. But if you guys are enjoying the stream, if you enjoy what we're talking about, if you scan the QR code at the top right-hand corner of the screen, it'll drop the link to the Behind the Street newsletter, which is a free financial newsletter that I write for everybody in the group. It's a cool, fun way to support the channel. So if you scan the QR code, punch in your email, you will be signed up to receive the newsletter where we talk about emerging markets, the US equity market, housing market, all that good stuff. We'd love to see you there. Hey, Tech Explorers NYC says we need to replace all the politicians. Hey, GX72 says thank you, Tom. Enjoyed the live stream. I will see you next time. Thank you, GX. Appreciate it. Could we get a quick time check in the chat? I know I started the stream late at around 9, so I got to make sure I get my bus. I don't want to miss the bus. Ooh, Sabrina Fair, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, my friend. Hopefully you had a good one and you're enjoying it. Ooh, 10:41. So that means we're gonna make the train, I wish, the bus in the nick of time. But tomorrow, hopefully, usually nobody comes into the office on Fridays, especially here in Miami. Everybody's out hanging out. This is Bank of America Tower. But tomorrow, maybe I'll show you guys around the WeWork here, so you guys can see the difference from a WeWork in Miami to the Manhattan ones. Hey, Martin Lucas, good to see you, Martin. So from here, you guys will have a good view of the Aston Martin building. Hey, Sonia C. Good to see you, Sonia. Welcome. I think we'll just make it over the bridge before the drawbridge goes up. I think I'm seeing the lights flash here. Ken Glass says that's a cool idea. Yeah, I have a lot of different ideas that we could do with the channel. I'm thinking about a couple things. Yeah, the LT Prod says, Tom, have you heard that the global debt is in the quadrillions? Well, I think at one time, Deutsche Bank had about that in just derivative exposure, like some crazy thing. I think they had multi-trillions worth of toxic derivative exposure. Yeah, photos from around New York says touring different WeWorks is always a blast. They always have a different layout. So Adam Neumann is in the news. I think we touched on that already, but Adam Neumann is in the news. I think he got about $350 million from A16Z, which is a very, very successful VC firm. Screaming success. However, I was a bit critical about a lot of the investments A16Z made in and around the cryptocurrency stuff. I think a lot of their investments, these companies were blatant fraud, which we talked a lot about. Like a lot of the lending protocols, things like that, that are guaranteeing, 15% interest rates. I think a lot of that stuff, the stablecoin stuff, is fraudulent, rather. Hey, Gene says, good night, Tom. And thanks for letting us tag along. By the way, 10 kilometers is 6.2 miles. So I think we may do a little bit more than that a day. Maybe a little less, depending on the day. But if you guys did enjoy the stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and we will see you right back here tomorrow, 8:30. I know we started the stream late. I apologize, but I was extremely busy at work today. I think tomorrow is going to be a little bit more of a relaxed day, so we'll check it out. Maybe we'll go over near the Frost Science Museum. Maybe we'll check out the west side of Brickell. We haven't done that in a while. And to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. And I will see everybody right back here tomorrow, 8:30. Finish strong, make it a good week, and happy Friday. So Gene, thank you so much. Penelope, the LT Prod, Alex Lopez. Hey Alex, thank you so much for joining. 925, Dan Zhang, appreciate it. Western Mass Dave, Yogi, all of our moderators. Sabrina Fair, appreciate it. Wendy England, 61 out and about. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Finish strong.